Hello, guys, welcome back to Hollywood Recapped. Today I'll be covering the 2011 romantic comedy film, named Friends with Benefits. The film opens with Dylan providing feedback on the website his group has just completed, but he is interrupted by a phone call, where we encounter Jamie, who appears to be on the phone with each other. However, we later discover that they are conversing with their significant others. When they meet their dates, they are ditched and informed that they have that many problems to be together. They both pull away from their broken relationships, pledging to stop dating for some time. Dylan is next seen on a trip to New York, while Jamie is getting ready in her car to pick up someone for her job as a recruiter. When Jamie arrives at the airport, her sign is blown away by the wind. Jamie attempted to grab it on the baggage conveyor, but Dylan beats her to it, and the two meet. During their travel, Jamie tries to persuade Dylan to work for GQ, but Dylan is uninterested. When they arrive at the GQ office, Jamie informs Dylan that she will wait for him until he completes his interview. When Dylan finishes, it's late at night, and he goes outside to find Jamie keeping her word. GQ's offer is sent to Jamie, who informs him that it will expire at midnight. Dylan is still undecided about transferring to New York for the work. Jamie replies she wouldn't either, but she would for New York. Jamie then intends to sell Dylan on New York's allure by giving him a factual tour of the city, and illegally climbs to the top of a skyscraper building, where they talk Dylan's family life. Dylan is then taken to Times Square to see and participate in a flash mob. Dylan loves it and informs Jamie that he is convinced and will accept the position. Dylan decides to move to New York and begins his first day at GQ. There, we meet Tommy, the company's sports editor, who is the most welcoming. Jamie arrives at Dylan's office to sign the contract. Dylan asks Jamie after signing if she knows where he can grab some lunch. Jamie makes Dylan feel self-conscious by inquiring if it's a date. Jamie then informs him that it is her treat. They get to talk about their exes at lunch, and how they've indeed been told that they're emotionally crippled objects. Jamie then asks Dylan to a party she's throwing and tells him he should come meet some new people. At the party, the two become a little closer, and as the days go by, their friendship begins to deepen. During their movie night, Jamie begins mouthing every line of the film they are watching, revealing her hopeless romantic side. The two then start discussing how having a sexual encounter should be limited to that and not involve any emotional or sentimental overtones like making sex. After making his shot, Dylan suggests to Jamie that perhaps they might get intimate now. At first, Jamie dismisses him as crazy, but Dylan calls her out, claiming to be aware of her attraction to him, at the very least, physically. Jamie shares this opinion, and they begin to enumerate the appealing qualities they like in one another. The two agree to keep their interactions purely sexual and not cross the line into possible relationship. And they begin outlining their preferences along the way. Dylan is receiving personal instruction for honing his tongue abilities. The following day, Jamie pays Dylan a visit at work where they discuss what transpired the night before. They both own their errors and decide to stop. Then they do the exact reverse for the following 6 minutes, playing tennis whenever possible. When they are having a friendship session, Lorna, Jamie's mother, walks in. Lorna says that Jamie hasn't introduced her to her new boyfriend as the two begin to dress. The two dispute this and claim that their interaction is cordial. Dylan starts chatting with Tommy and brings up their setup. Tommy warns that things are about to go horribly wrong since coitus usually makes matters more complicated. Lorna tells Jamie that evening that she didn't anticipate being in that kind of situation. To make up for her shortcomings as a mother, Lorna then extends an invitation to Jamie to join her on a vacation for the 4th of July. Jamie accepts gratefully. The two agree to wrap up their setup after another intimate session. Expressing their readiness for a serious situation and their delight at getting through without any BS. They each attempt to identify a stranger they could like as they make their way to a park. Dylan finds the ideal catch for Dylan, but Jamie finds none for Dylan. Jamie approaches Parker and convinces him to go on a date. Bring on the sequence of dates where it appears that Parker and Jamie are a good match. On one of them, Jamie notes her 5-date requirement before letting a guy hit a home run. Parker thinks it's alright since she's worth waiting. Dylan, on the other hand, believes that he should begin socializing as well after observing how well Jamie and Parker get along. When Jamie and Parker go on their 5th date, he honors his vow to let Parker take his shot. Dylan isn't having as much luck with his lady, though. He receives a phone call from his sister Annie asking if he'll be going home for the 4th of July, which he confirms in the middle of his session. After a fun-filled night the previous night, Dylan calls Jamie outside her apartment the next morning, where Jamie informs him that things are going well with Parker. And just as she's going to turn around, Parker is caught leaving her flat without permission. Parker uses the very same line all Jamie's ex-partners have, and it goes without saying that things do not end well. To explain what occurred to her and Parker, Jamie rushes to Dylan's house as he is packing. Jamie is comforted by Dylan, who advises her to ignore the situation and to enjoy their vacation with her mother. She isn't present when Jamie returns home to leave on her trip with her mother. She has abandoned Jamie once more. Jamie gives Dylan a portrait that her mother left her, prompting Dylan to invite her to travel to Los Angeles with him, and she accepts. Dylan introduces Jamie to Annie, his sister, and Sam, his Annie's son, once they arrive in Los Angeles. When he meets his father, Mr. Harper, he thinks Jamie is a different girl and says that he has Alzheimer's. That evening, Jamie and Annie begin discussing their father and Dylan when he was younger. Dylan knocks on Jamie's door as it's time for bed and claims he felt she sent him a signal before by cracking her neck. Jamie declines, stating that because she was just dumped, she would want to have some emotional support. When things start to calm down after spending the evening getting wasted, the two share a moment that sparks an intimate session. Dylan sneaks out of a room once they are finished, and Annie catches him in the act. The following morning at breakfast, Jamie begins to look after Dylan, letting Dylan's folks know what's going on between the two. During dinner, Jamie and Dylan begin to tease one another, which gives them a more romantic appearance. Then, Mr. Harper experiences a flare-up of his disease and wonders where his wife who had long since left them is. Dylan and Jamie climb up the Hollywood sign the following day. Jamie goes one step further and climbs the fence to stand on one of the sign's letters. There, Jamie inquires as to Dylan's lack of ever bringing up his parents. Dylan responds by claiming he is unable to bear the sympathy glances people give him when they learn his father is unwell or what happens to his mother. Jamie makes an effort to explain what transpired to them. Dylan quickly downplays the incident, saying it was simply a casual occurrence, but it clearly destroys Jamie without his knowledge. Then the police arrive to remove them from the sign. Dylan freezes there as Jamie leaps off, claiming he is terrified of heights. Dylan ultimately needs to be flown, and everyone can see him on the news. Annie is attempting to persuade Dylan to acknowledge his emotions for Jamie at home, which he quickly ignores and makes an attempt to leave the conversation. Annie confronts Dylan and keeps interrogating him without realizing Jamie is with them. Dylan begins to give explanations for why Jamie isn't his type, saying what Jamie's ex-girlfriends have previously told her. After hearing everything, Jamie finds a reason to depart that evening. The entire family tries to persuade her to stay, but she clearly isn't feeling well and decides to go. Back in New York, Jamie is ignoring Dylan while also welcoming her mother back after having abandoned her. Jamie receives a call from a client at work requesting Dylan's services. Dylan is still attempting to reach Jamie, but she is not returning his calls. And that's when he recalled the place Jamie frequents to escape her hectic life. Dylan comes across Jamie on a building's roof, where Jamie reveals that she overheard Dylan talking to Annie. The two fight as Dylan still doesn't understand that Jamie no longer views him as a friend. The client Jamie spoke with about Dylan later contacted Dylan personally to recruit him, according to a call Jamie receives from her supervisor the following day. Jamie goes to the picture shoot to find Dylan. Dylan reacts angrily when Jamie confronts him, repeating what she said to him while they were on the rooftop. Dylan and Annie discuss the specifics of what time he needs to pick up their father that evening, as Jamie's mother tries to convince Jamie that the traditional fairy tale she is thinking about is not appropriate for her. Dylan picks up his father from the airport after hearing him claim he was starving. Dylan returns to his father after failing to secure them a table at a restaurant. His father removes his trousers in the middle of the restaurant while experiencing one of his Alzheimer's episode and seeks a seat. Dylan pauses as everyone looks at his father and decides to take down his pants beside him. Mr. Harper mentions the name of a girl he encountered in the Navy to a girl while he is eating. He claims that despite the fact that he was too naive to understand it, she was indeed the love of his life. Then, he offers Dylan some fatherly counsel on how to avoid making the same error that he did. That he should notify them right away if he ever finds someone he can't live without. With the aid of his father and Tommy, who uses his boat to get them past the traffic in New York, Dylan puts a plan together. Dylan sets up everything before leaving his father with Dave, who is there to take care of him. In the following scene, we see Jamie at Grand Central Terminal talking on the phone with her mother, whom she is meant to see. Her mother confesses that all of this is a part of Dylan's plan towards the beginning of a flash mob. Dylan gives everything he has, and Jamie receives the happily ever after she has always desired. Everyone ultimately receives a small amount of what they desire. But let me know what you all think in the comments section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss the next recap.